but these age-sex compositions are generally represented by a population pyramid. This population pyramid gives us an idea about the, these are all 5-year age groups, say 0 to 4, 5 to 9, 10 to 14, and maybe here 80 plus. Yes, and then we have on the right, always females are right, so on the right we have female, on the left we have male, and then we have, say, this is a population pyramid. This is a population pyramid of a developing country. Why? There is a large number of young people, a high birth rate, right? If we kind of try to see what is the population of a developed country, say for Japan, the population pyramid will be something like this, something like this. A population pyramid. So that means that the birth rate you see is very low for the males and for the females as well. Yeah, these are different age groups, 0 to 4, 5 to 9, 10 to 14, 15 to 19, and so on till 85 plus maybe. And then this is the population size over here. This side females, this side females, this side males, and then we see that those who are taking birth, here they are dying, right? Over here nobody is dying, so here there is a high, it's getting short, squeezed, and then sharp, flat. So that means that there is a lot of death in these young days, but here nobody dies in the young days. So you can see it's not really looking like a typical pyramid what we expect. So this changing its structure is again both way related to socioeconomic conditions. The socioeconomic conditions lead to the change in birth and death, and then the birth and death leads to the change in population size, and then population size leads to the again development, and thus an impact on the socioeconomic condition of that particular society or the population. Now, once we see that here we can clearly earmark maybe 3 groups. One can be this group, one can be this group. So this is like elderly people. If this is our children, then these are our dependent population, right? Both elderly and children, they are our dependent population, isn't it? Yes, and this is the working class. This is the working class people. So we can estimate an age dependency ratio as population aged 0 to 14 years plus population, you can keep it 60 and above or 65 and above, 60 years plus, divided by working population age, population aged 15 to 60 years, I will say, yeah, more than 60 years, 60 years plus, yeah, more, and 15 to 60 years. So this gives an idea about the age dependency ratio. The more the dependency is, one thing is that the country has to pay up, the larger section of the GDP goes to the social security. Yes, that's primarily because they need to support these young children as well as their education, their health, immunization, so on and so forth. Similarly, the elderly people, they don't have work now, they have a lot of medical expenses, they have to be supported, or if they are being supported by the families, that means the family's large income is not being invested or being either being invested or being utilized in a productive manner, but they are actually supporting the elderly individuals in their home. So that means it is not coming back to the economy in a positive manner. Yeah, so so it's not a good sign or healthy sign of a society. So that means the developing the society is still in a developing phase or underdeveloped. In a developed country, the again not a very developed in today's scenario, but in countries where the population 15 to 60 years, and this ratio is not very high, that means they are going to be economically stable. What happens in countries like Japan and all, this age dependency ratio again is high, but that is not basically, there are two instances. As one, I say the child dependency ratio, and elderly dependency ratio. Child dependency ratio is high in low and middle income countries. Elderly dependent ratio is high in developed countries. Because of lower birth rate, high in developed countries. Because of the lower birth rate, and not many people are actually substituting the working population. So there is a dearth of working population, and then the people are living for a long time. So that means those who are taking birth, even if that proportion is small, the number is small, they are living, they are living beyond their 60 years. And then there is a elderly support which is very critically needed and very large in nature. Therefore, but these two has a negative impact on the economy. Right? This has both of these have a negative impact on the economy. So what happens when I come here, or maybe the previous graph, if I can show the consumption chart. Say I'm showing the consumption chart. So what happens over here, the consumption chart is pretty low, right? Because nobody, the people don't have many choices, the desire is low, they are just and there is no formal market economy. So people just exchange things, and then with not much possession, that exchange also is not very possible at a high level. And on top of that, when this at this primitive societies, there is again no formal economy, no formal market, and that is where the consumption level is also very low. Yeah, and then it goes very high, and then it starts increasing, and then it may increase and it may eventually fall. The same thing happens with the total population, the population number increases and then falls. So anyways, that is shown by over here, and then it falls. But this is the consumption, the level of consumption, the market economy. Anyways, for these particular populations, both if this is high, the level of consumption both at the micro level and the macro level is high. Similarly, if this population is high, again the consumption is high, and then the production which is coming from this population is low. Because if this population is low and these populations are high, then the a larger share of this population's income is going to feed these people, so which is not really desired. So there should be a proper balance. So if there should be a proper balance, that is basically we can explain it in terms of total fertility rate. I'm not telling you the the definitions of different fertility or mortality measurements, but this total fertility rate says that in a simplistic form, nothing in a very simple form, it says that when or the average number of children. It's not this simple, yeah, average number of children per mother, right, or per woman of a particular age. Yeah, it's generally of a reproductive age, or per, I will just mention that, per woman in the reproductive age group. And then it's like if they don't die during their reproductive age group, they follow a same fertility and mortality chart, a specific fertility rate, and all these assumptions are there. But this is the average number of children per woman in an age, reproductive age group. And we have also have a concept of below or replacement fertility level. That is when one the one couple has two children, and those two children are replacing their mother, and this replacement fertility level is known as when TFR is 2.1, total fertility rate is 2.1. Why 2.1? Why not exactly 2? This 0.1 is basically not everybody marries, or not everybody can get a child, right? Or sometimes maybe the children are dying, so all these things. So this 0.1 is that extra. But once they reach this 2.1 level, so the economy is developed, so this child mortality rate and infant mortality rate goes down. So this 0.1 is basically for those who don't marry or don't have children or something like that. Anyways, so now having giving you this idea, or the maybe the previous idea, this how this negative income impact on the economy takes place because of these dependency ratios, child dependency ratio or elderly dependency ratio. You can multiply, or it can be out of total population and percentage, in terms of percentage, that elderly dependent percentage, in terms of rate and all, rate of elderly population. Anyways, so this kind of the impact of its composition on a particular economy can eventually be very helpful if a country has a high number of working age population, right? Because if there is a high number of working age population, then this population is high, and then these dependents are low, so the country will improve economically, and that's primarily because a lot of income is being generated and not much consumption towards unproductive consumption towards supporting children and elderly. So but this is a transition phase between a very low development and very high development phase. This is known as demographic dividend. Demographic dividend. So it's a window of opportunity in a society, or in the development of a society, which opens up when fertility rates decline faster, and fertility rates decline faster, and already you have the economically able population with low mortality rate, but combined with effective policies and markets. See, in India, we say that we are in the, there is a lot of debate, policies and markets. We say that we are enjoying the demographic dividend, but we are not. That's because we have seen that in our kind of research, that we have seen that even if the number of working population is growing, but their employability is not high, and even if the the education is increasing, but the kind of economy we have, we are moving towards this kind of service sector oriented economy, and then we really don't if we really don't train them towards the higher technical degrees, then it really doesn't make much sense, because you know, we are not capturing the economic boom, and then at the same time, if we are not actually, you know, making a growth in manufacturing sector, then those who are not, because again it is because of the heterogeneity in the society, this higher education has not really penetrated among the most of the section of the society, and then they are being semi-literate. They don't really find a lucrative job in this, you know, service sector oriented growth, and that is where, you know, and then the quality of education is also also remained poor. So even if, you know, we have a demographic advantage, but our education or health policies or the, you know, the excludability has really not helped us helped us to reap the benefit of demographic dividend. Yeah. So in demographic dividend we have two stages. The first demographic dividend is the first stage of demographic dividend. I will just write it like this here to save time. So the first demographic dividend is when it boosts because of this, you know, declining fertility, faster decline in fertility as compared to mortality being already down. It boosts the per capita income or the economy. Yes, but it is transitory, it's temporary, because the, you know, with the development, the you know, we will move further, and then this natural growth will not be there again. The fertility rate will come down, so our demographic development will no more be there. So this is a transitory period, and you know, if it is and then what happens if the income per consumption, because now when we have here income per consumption is high at this period, income per consumption is high, but income per consumption will drop in future, and that's a concern, right? So to make amend for that concern, we have second demographic dividend. In this second demographic dividend talks about savings. Yes, why savings is required? Because the mortality is low, life expectancy high, so people will live longer time, and it's better that they save for their own future, own elderly period. And because if they are saving, you know, the you know, they will keep the money, invest the money, which again these financial institutions or the government can reinvest in a productive way. So in that way, you know, the second and then if we can actually utilize this second demographic dividend properly, then the second demographic dividend is permanent, because with this high savings rate and all, we have a, you know, higher asset per income per consumer, as well as, you know, this investment and reinvestment, and this cycle keeps getting the oil and then keep moving. So and therefore we should have an accumulated savings, or, you know, accumulated savings or assets. And it also depends the kind of, you know, family transfer a particular household has, or the kind of pension they get, that also determines their savings habit, you know, or the kind of again family transfer, like from their children and all, or their ancestral properties. So and it all determines the habit of savings, you know, the behavior towards savings, and that will together will determine that how effective that second demographic dividend or the demographic dividend overall will be working or not. Because and this working towards, you know, planning towards second demographic dividend should start when people look at when people are working. Thank you.